Yo, what's good, my great sages? It's your host, Sage G Samurai here, now here today to bring y'all a new part to the What If series. This being a new part to What If Asta has Shadow's abilities. Now, first things first, I want to say sorry, y'all, for taking so long when it came to making this video. I went on break midway through making this part, and I just never returned. And it's only now that I'm going back to it because school is starting up, and that's really why I get that hustle mentality and everything, but still, nonetheless, I do want to apologize. And once again, I'm going to make this very clear. This is why I don't do part series, because I have a very particular schedule. I don't have the consistency enough to do part series. For What If movies, perfect. But for What If series, this is exactly why I don't make them. All right. So like I said multiple times, this is the last time I'm making a part series. And after this, What If, I'm going to go back to doing full-on What If movies. So you guys don't have to worry about that. And don't worry, this will be turned into a What If movie later on after I do a couple of editing and combine the two parts, so you guys can see it all together. But still nonetheless, thank y'all so much for tuning into this What If. And now with that being said, I do believe I finished yapping for quite a while, so with that being said, let's get started.
You're never gonna make it, you're not good enough. There's a million other people with the same stuff. You really think you're different? Man, you must be kidding. Think you're gonna hit it, but you just don't get it. It's impossible, it's not probable, you're irresponsible. Too many obstacles, you gotta stop it, yo. You gotta take it slow, you can't be a pro. Don't waste your time no more. Who the fuck are you to tell me what to do?
So picking up the What If, right where I left off, we now turn to see Asta. As current right now, he'll be zipping throughout the capital in order to find the leader behind the attack. As while doing this, turning to Asta's perspective right now, we'll see him as he'll be dashing through multiple different alleyways and just going through hordes of undead like they were nothing. And he'll be doing all this in under a few seconds, as due to his super speed, this was relatively easy. Until eventually he'll then soon stumble upon Rades, as similar to how he does in the main timeline, Asta would find him just as he was about to attack a child. And immediately leaping into action, I'm not even going to describe the fight scene as there really is no fight scene. Asta ends up defeating him in one blow while also making sure to get the child a safe distance away. As Rades would then next be shown to be actually cratering into a wall where you can see that on the right side of his cheek, similar to if you guys watch One Piece when Luffy punched Bellamy and he had like the fist mark in his face, yeah, Rades will look like that, and he'll be cratering into a wall. As now with Rades being knocked out, we can actually see multiple hordes from the undead that was attacking the capital then be soon deactivated, causing the civilians to now be saved. As now with Rades defeated, this is when Asta would then turn to the child, as the child will be looking at all this in confusion before finally connecting all the dots and then looking at Asta in amazement, telling him that she was extremely thankful to him. And Asta, although, being very stoic and being a tough guy, he does show appreciation to it, as he ends up patting the girl on her head and letting her know that he's going to go ahead and, take her to her parents. As using his super speed, it was pretty easy to find them, and he found them relatively quickly as well. As soon after leaving the girl with their parents, this is where we will then see Asta as he spends the next few moments just making sure that all the civilians were saved and that no more attacks were happening. But while he was doing this is when he would then soon encounter both Noel and Leopold, as both of them had decided to chase after Asta, which was a very much impossible task as they couldn't keep up with him. But now that they finally found Asta, this is where Leopold, just like he does in the main timeline, would then declare to Asta saying that he was his rival now, with Asta just simply ignoring him. As after that, for the next few moments, we would just see the three of them just being there, making sure all the civilians were okay until Fuegoleon would then soon arrive. As now that the undead were no longer attacking, Fuegoleon can focus on trying to dull the flames of the area, since after all, there was still large amounts of fire all around. But thanks to his magic, not only would he be able to dull the flames, but he would also be able to completely extinguish them, causing less damage around the entirety of the capital. But you see, while Fuegoleon was doing this though, this is when Asta would then catch notice of something in the very last second, as he would then tell Fuegoleon to stop, but unfortunately, Fuegoleon was way too late. As similar to how it does in the main timeline, Fuegoleon would end up getting captured into a portal, or at least he would at first, as Fuegoleon had actually, missed the portal opening up underneath his feet, causing him to be sucked up in it. As just as things were about to go exactly as it does in the main timeline, as Leopold will be crying out to his brother trying to help him, this is when suddenly Asta, almost seeming as if he teleported, would then appear right in front of Fuegoleon, as he was actually able to grab his hand in the very last second and yank him out of the portal. As everyone would just be there watching in complete shock, as the portal would then soon end up closing, but not being able to take Fuegoleon as it was intended for, as everyone would just be there watching in complete shock with Fuegoleon trying to understand what just happened. I can't believe it. I couldn't even react, but yet he was still able to reach me. This boy, just who is he? Fuegoleon will be asking this question in his head, as he'll be looking at Asta, just trying to piece together who exactly is this boy, with Asta not really caring one bit, as instead he was focusing on something else. This being the fact that Asta had been able to actually find the signature that was behind the attack. Basically, thanks to the magical sense that he has, he was able to locate exactly where this person was hiding. And this caused Asta to then gain a look of determination as he prepares to hunt down the man, only for a portal to then open up, as a bunch of mages will then be arriving to ambush Asta and the gang. Now, even though Asta and the rest of the squad was outnumbered, that didn't really mean anything, as every last one of them were able to take care of their respective opponents rather easily, before eventually, after taking care of all those mages, Fuegoleon as well as Asta would then soon end up going out to find Voltos, who was still trying to go into hiding after Radius was defeated. But thanks to Asta being able to sense him, it was too late, as both Asta and Fuegoleon would then find him before knocking him out, then capturing him, as this will fully put an end to the attack on the capital, as then we will now do a little bit of a time skip. So now flashing forward to after all the conflict has been settled down and after the Magic Knights have finally regrouped with each other, this is where we would then see Julius then end up returning back, as similar to the main timeline, he ends up thanking the Magic Knights for their service while also informing them about the approaching enemy, as this causes everyone to grimace as they didn't realize that a potential threat is actually coming to the Clover Kingdom in quite a while, but still nonetheless they do plan to take care of it efficiently just like they usually do. As after this little brief discussion, this is where they will then go their separate ways. As this is where we will then see the rest of this arc actually coming to an end, as similar to the main timeline, we see Asta along with Noelle and also Charmy, who had tagged along this entire time, just, no one had noticed her being there. This is when suddenly all of them would then encounter Yuno in the Golden Dawn, as Yuno would then try to show Asta just how strong he had gotten, as just like in the main timeline, Yuno had faced off against the witch and had gotten a major power buff by awakening his spirit. As now trying to show off exactly how strong he is, this is where we would then see Yuno then create a ginormous winged arrow as he then shoots it at Asta. And Asta, even though he was seeing such a powerful attack, we would then see him easily show Yuno exactly what type of class they were in, as even though everyone else on his side was panicking, Asta would then calmly raise one hand into the air, as we would then see black and red energy then emerge from it, as the very second that the arrow had connected with Asta's hand, this is where Yuno and everyone else would then watch in complete shock, as a very powerful attack would then just be destroyed. It will be left to nothingness. As Yuno as well as everyone else watching would then see as Asta had not only just completely, but also easily just outclassed Yuno in every type of way. As in that very instant, everyone knew exactly what the gap between Asta and Yuno truly was, as Yuno would then realize that he had a long way to go, but even after all that, he wouldn't be discouraged. In fact, he'll be even more pumped up for it and even more inspired, as he then declares to Asta that he's not going to lose next time, with Asta just sending him a nod with a little bit of a grin before suddenly going off on his own, before Noelle and then Charmy would then follow. As now with this part of the story now taken care of, this is where we can now move forward to the next arc, this being the Eye of the Midnight Sun encounter arc. So entering the arc, we now enter with Asta after the events that transpired at the capital, as he will just be continuing on with his regular routine, this being going on missions, training his magic, and overall just, being dedicated to his goal, as he would also be occasionally sending letters to his village just to check up on them, while also sending them money in order to fund the orphanage and just the entirety of the village, as Asta was slowly but surely getting closer and closer to his goal. But while Asta was doing this though, during the time, this is where we would then see him then get invited to the mixer by Finral, similar to how it does in the main timeline. But unfortunately, Finral is rejected, considering the fact that Asta has no time for any of that, and was way too dedicated to his own training and to make sure that his village got money, that he didn't want to get any distractions. So with that, Finral decides to bring Magma along, so that event still ends up happening, just not in the same way, and we're still able to move on from it, especially since the next part still remains unchanged. As we see, turning to the next day, as we see Asta once again at the midst of his training, this is when suddenly he would then hear a distress signal, as this was coming from a magical device. As if you guys remember the magical devices that were distributed among the Magic Knights, basically like a phone and everything like that, well, Asta would be sensing the device as it will be releasing a distress signal, letting him know that something was going on. And looking around, Asta would be confused as he realized that the base today was kind of empty, as every last one of the Black Bulls had their own tasks and responsibilities, leaving Asta alone at the base, meaning that he was the only one that had to answer it. So now with that, this is where we end up seeing Asta as he ends up going to the device and just, picking it up to see exactly who was calling, and this is when Asta would then be informed about the situation. As currently right now, similar to the main timeline, the events that were happening at Rebecca's village would be playing out, with the children there being captured by both Nij and Barrow in order to extract their magic. And due to having no idea what to do, the village chief at that village had no choice but to decide to send a distress signal to any nearby Magic Knights. All the while Ghosh and Sister Teresa had headed off to the location to do exactly as they were planning to do in the main timeline. Now when Asta ends up receiving the signal, and after getting informed about the whole situation, this is when he would then immediately tell them to stay put, as he would then dash off to the location, arriving there in only a couple of seconds. Now once he arrives, the villagers that were there would immediately be surprised by how quickly he had arrived, but then immediately begin to beg him to go after and save the children, especially Rebecca. As Rebecca by this point was completely in tears, and she looked just ruined by now, as she was just wondering where they all went and wanted Asta to go save the children. And Asta, seeing how everyone was, this is when suddenly he would then begin to just picture how everything would be if this was Hajj village, the village where he came from. As he imagined what would it be like if his siblings were captured. And just thinking about it just immediately pissed off Asta, as he grew angry. As Asta would then suddenly approach the village chief, asking him where the location was, where they all had been spotted, and after getting the information, this is where Asta would then suddenly dash off to the location, letting everyone know that he'll be back soon. Now skimming forward a little bit, we now turn to when Asta ends up arriving at the mountain, and when he does, the first thing he will see would be Sister Teresa, as she will be healing one of Rebecca's siblings. Now when seeing Asta's arrival in his Magic Knight robe, Sister Teresa would then ask Asta to go help the other children, only for him to suddenly super speed both her and the child back to the village, without any hesitation. Now this would catch both Sister Teresa and the child by surprise, as this is when suddenly more and more children begin to appear. As this was all happening, mind you, in a blink of an eye, like Asta was literally just teleporting back and forth basically, or at least that's how it looked like to everyone else. As Sister Teresa would see more and more kids appear, with every last one of them being confused, as one second they were stuck in a very creepy cave with both Nij and Barrow there, and the very next second they were here, free and back with their parents. As Sister Teresa would just be there watching everything, completely shocked as she wondered who exactly was this child. As she sees Asta appear and disappear multiple times, until eventually this is when she would then snap out of it, as one of the children would then grab on her robe, asking her if she could, help him out, since he was a little bit cold, and not only that, but a little bit injured. And seeing this, Sister Teresa immediately began to work on healing them, all the while Asta would continue retrieving more and more children. As in a matter of seconds, all the children would be back into the village, but the only one being left there would be none other than Marie. Now turning to Asta, as we see him once again dash towards the cave, he would then arrive there once again to see Marie, as she'll be there watching Ghosh, who is still fighting. Now Asta tries to bring Marie back to the village, but this is when Marie would then suddenly grab Asta's arm and beg him to help out her brother, as she ends up telling Asta that if he doesn't help out Ghosh, then Ghosh will end up dying. As Asta seeing this would be, confused, as he then looks at the scene only to see exactly what she meant. As you see, Ghosh, due to him being in a blind rage and just attacking relentlessly, he got caught off guard by Nij's attack, causing him to now be in a very sticky situation, as he was surrounded by a bunch of snow golems that were now beating the living crap out of him. And even though he tries to fight back, unfortunately due to him not getting a chance to gather up magic, that meant that Ghosh was literally standing on his last legs. And Asta seeing this would then once again be a little bit annoyed, but still nonetheless will decide to help, as he ended up telling Marie that he's going to dash her back to the village, then he's going to come back to help her brother. And after looking at Asta for quite a while to see if he was potentially lying, this is where Marie would then agree to it, as just like that we would then see Asta then take Marie back to the village, making sure she was a safe distance away and making sure that she was with Sister Teresa, before eventually he would then run back to help out Ghosh. As we now turn to the fight, we will see Ghosh standing on his last legs, as he would just be there trying to understand exactly how he was losing here, but still at the end of the day, as he ends up looking at Nij, all he could feel was anger. He wanted nothing more but to eviscerate the guy in front of him for hitting his sister, as he would try to gather magic once again, only to be punched in the face and sent flying, as once again the snow golems were relentless. As Ghost would be there getting hit over and over again and was fading into unconsciousness, this is when suddenly every last one of the snow golems would then suddenly just disappear, as Asta, in the very split second right as Ghost was about to be knocked out, had actually arrived at the scene and just immediately obliterated the snow golems. As Ghost would just be there laying on the ground, bloody and everything, he would then suddenly try getting up as he looks at Asta, as he then glares at him. "I don't need your help. Wait a minute, where's Marie?" Ghost would then say, as he then looks around to see that his sister's not there, causing him to grow angry and worried, as he then screams at Asta, telling him where his sister was, only for Asta to then look at him and then coldly tell him to shut up. As suddenly Asta would then send a small miniature blast of magic directly into Ghost's face, knocking him out, but not enough to actually do some, serious damage or anything like that, as now all that was left was just Nij, Barrow, and Asta. As the three of them would be there staring down at each other, with Barrow feeling a ginormous amount of hesitation, as he had just seen Asta's speed and saw that he was moving so fast that neither of them could react. As this is when he would then try using the magic scouter to see how strong Asta was, only to be surprised, as at first it stopped at 1,000, then 2,000, then 5,000, as they just continue going up and further, as suddenly the scouter would then break. As Nij would then suddenly turn to Barrow, asking him what was wrong, as Barrow would then suddenly be there as he looked extremely pale, as if all the color that was in his body just left him, as he then shakily points a finger at Asta, asking him just what the hell was he? As no monster, there's no such thing as a human being with that much magical power. It didn't make any sense. As Barrow continues to go on a rant, but unfortunately, Asta, he was just at a wit's end. As after all, these guys had interrupted his training, and not only that, but they captured a bunch of children, which already made Asta hate them. As suddenly moving so fast that once again no one's able to react, Asta is able to knock out both Nij and Barrow, putting an end to their fight immediately. As now with both Nij and Barrow taken care of, this is where we're now going to do a miniature time skip. So now turning to after Asta had defeated Nij and Barrow, we will now see him as he had captured both of them using his magic to restrain them, as he had planned to interrogate them. Now Ghost by this point had actually awakened, as he would ask Asta where Marie was, with Asta telling him that she was back at the village and telling him to go over there to get patched up. Now Ghost, although he wanted nothing more but to argue against Asta, unfortunately he was way too weakened, and not only that, but he was so desperate to see if Marie was okay, as he ends up letting Asta know that if anything happened to her that he would pay, before suddenly heading off. As Asta would roll his eyes in response to the threat before turning to both Nij and Barrow, as he prepares to interrogate them. But before he gets the chance, this is when suddenly Asta would sense something approaching. As dodging out of the way, this is where Asta would then see a light spear, as a light spear was so close actually hitting Asta in the back of the head. As Asta is sighing as he already knows that more trouble is arriving, this is when he would then get up, as he then turns to look behind him to see none other than Licht, the leader of the Eye of the Midnight Sun. As Licht would then end up arriving, this is when he would then ask both Nij and Barrow exactly what was the progress on the mission. With both Nij and Barrow actually panicking, as they actually were not planning to meet the leader, they were planning to meet Sally, but it seems as if they wouldn't get the chance. As both of them tried to explain what was going on, this is when suddenly Licht would then create two light spears, as this is when he then shoots them at both Nij and Barrow, intending to kill them, since if they revealed any information to Asta, that meant that they were worthless. As both Nij and Barrow would then see their life flash before their eyes, this is when suddenly, at the very next split second, both of them would then be taken to safety, as Asta had been able to grab them right in the nick of time and made them move out of the way of the attack, causing both the light spears to destroy the area where they were, but luckily both Nij and Barrow were still alive. Now Licht would actually be surprised by Asta's speed, as he didn't ask Asta why exactly did he save them, especially with the acts they committed. And Asta looks at Licht before suddenly answering. Don't get the wrong idea, I'm not exactly saving them because of sentimental value, I'm saving them so I can extract information for later. And if you think for a second I'm letting you get away as well, then you're going to be deeply mistaken. As Licht, after hearing this threat from Asta, this is when suddenly he would then begin to smirk, letting Asta know that unfortunately he couldn't let him live any longer, as by now Licht had acknowledged Asta as a threat to their plans, so it was better that Asta would be eliminated. As now with those thoughts in his mind, this is where Licht would then suddenly summon multiple arrays of light spears, as Asta would then build up on his own magic as well, as the fight between both Licht and Asta would then begin. Now the fight first starts off with both Asta and Licht just simply disappearing from both Nijinbaro's eyes, as both of them would end up clashing with each other. Asta using his, chaos magic to go ahead and blast Licht, with Licht using a light spear to block the attack, but being surprised by the fact that Asta was able to overpower him, as the light spear would then break immediately after getting into contact with Asta's magic, as Asta would then punch Licht in the face before sending him flying. But you see, as Asta would do this, the light spears that were all around would then suddenly rush at him, as they were kind of like a, self-defense mechanism, as once Licht would get hit, they would attack Asta on command. But yet, even after this array of light spear would head after Asta, none of them would hit, as Asta was just simply faster than all of them, as he was able to easily dodge out of the way of every last one of these light spears. But while he was doing this is when Licht would then recover, as he ends up creating a ginormous light whip, as he tries to hit Asta, with Asta once again dodging. As a fight between the two of them would rage on, as we will see multiple amounts of the cave being destroyed by their battle, as Asta is able to easily destroy all of Licht's attacks while also dodging them. And not only that, but he's able to damage Licht so badly enough to the point where Licht couldn't stay in the fight for too long. As eventually, after trading blows for a while, this is where Licht would then come to the realization that Asta was someone that he couldn't take on by himself. As once that thought had came into his mind, this is where suddenly he would then see Asta disappear before his eyes, as he ends up looking around to find him, only for him to then be blindsided and knocked into unconsciousness. As Asta had been able to successfully knock out Licht, as that put an end to the fight rather quickly. Or at least that's what Asta had thought. As we now move to the next scene. So now turning to the next few moments, we now turn to see Asta once again, as by this point now he'll be interrogating Licht about the operation he was running, with Licht just being there watching Asta with a void look on his face, before suddenly this is when he would then begin to speak. And this is when Licht would then begin to reveal how sinister the Eye of the Midnight Sun truly was, as he lets Asta know about the plan to extract the kid's magic, about the plan to overthrow the capital, and not only that but just the annihilation of humans in general. As Asta would just be there listening to everything, as he would actually break out of his stoicness for the first few times in quite a while, as he'll be there listening to the horrors as Licht begins to let Asta know exactly how he feels about human, as Asta could actually hear the hatred in Licht's voice, as he ends up telling Asta that humans like him were nothing more but scum of the earth, and that they should have been eliminated. No, they should have been extinct. As after revealing exactly what his plans were, this is when Asta would then suddenly hear a beast claw rushing to his face, as he then turns to the side to see the attack approaching. But luckily Asta is able to dodge out of the way thanks to his quick reflexes, as this is when suddenly he would then be jumped by the other three leaders of the Midnight Sun, as they would arrive, as each one of them would then throw their respective attacks at Asta, with Asta dodging out of the way and getting a safe distance away from them. As Asta would be there watching all four members now, as every last one of the leaders had reunited, with Licht now being free from his restraint. As Vedo begins to go on a monologue telling Asta that he was a slippery bastard, but he's going to make sure that he tastes true despair, with Fauna saying that she's going to obliterate Asta, and Raya just letting Asta know that he really screwed up big time. As Licht then tells Asta that now that he knows all this stuff, that he can no longer be let alive, and telling him that this will be his grave. As Asta would be there listening to Licht and the rest of them, but the thing was, even though he was hearing all this, and even though he was confronted by probably the greatest threats to the Clover Kingdom in quite a while, Asta didn't feel any fear. He didn't feel anything. No, the only thing he truly felt at this moment was nothing more but disgust. As after hearing the hatred that Licht had for humans, and after seeing how he showed no sentiment at all, even to children, this will cause Asta to feel not only disgusted, but enraged. As suddenly Asta's grimoire begins to release a ginormous amount of black and red energy, as this energy that it was releasing was so strong that it began to shake up the entirety of the cave, as every last one of the members of the Eye of the Midnight Sun that was there began to pale, as they wonder what was going on. As now quickly turning our attention to Asta's grimoire, we would then see it flip through multiple pages rapidly before arriving at a certain page, as suddenly a whole new spell would then be created, as this will be as a way for Asta to vent out his frustration. As Asta, feeling enraged and disgusted by the Eye of the Midnight Sun, this is when a voice would then suddenly call out to him mentally, as it would then give Asta specific instruction, letting him know to go all out. As Asta would then suddenly end up taking off his golden rings, as he would then utter the words, "Chaos Control!" As after saying these words, this is where suddenly we would then see time itself then freeze, as the Eye of the Midnight Sun can do nothing more but widen their eyes in complete shock, as their expressions will be kind of comedic to anyone else that was watching, as they had showed a face of pure horror, as the magic that Asta was releasing was so strong that time itself would freeze. As just like that, nothing was moving, everything was frozen, with the only one being able to move would be Asta, as this weird energy was just releasing from him, as Asta just looked and felt completely different. It was almost as if he was a completely new being entirely. And in that split instance, as Asta would be there, having this energy surrounding him, this is when suddenly he would then see someone. As in this area that was completely frozen, Asta would then see someone there, as it would be glowing, as he couldn't really get a good look at them. But this is when the individual or whatever it was would then tell Asta that this was just nothing more but the beginning of his abilities. As Asta would ask him who he was, but unfortunately, before he could get any answer, the individual would then fade away. As Asta would just be there wondering what was going on, but still nonetheless, he would then realize what he needed to do. As now turning to the Midnight Sun leaders that were not moving at all, this is where we would then see Asta in the very next split instance defeat every last one of them. I'm not even going to describe the fight here, considering the fact that there is no fight. They couldn't even punch, they couldn't do anything, as Asta would be able to defeat every last one of the leaders before a single second could pass. As by the time that Asta was finally done, this is where we would then hear a generous explosion go off. As far away, turning our perspective to Rebecca's village, every last one of the villagers, now happy to be reunited with their children, would then look on in complete shock as they see the mountain itself then just explode, as a generous amount of smoke would then rise up from the mountain, as they could do nothing but watch on in shock, wondering what was going on. As now turning our attention back to Asta, we would then see him standing there stoically with his arms crossed, as currently right now laying at his feet would be none other than all four leaders of the Eye of the Midnight Sun. And not only that, but we also see Neej and Baro as well, as, not gonna lie, they got caught up in the explosion. Like, Asta was not playing any games. But luckily, every last one of them were alive, just barely. As Asta would just be there, remaining stoic, as this is when he would then use the magical device as he solemnly calls up the Magic Knights, letting him know to pick up the leaders. As this is where we now end up doing a time skip. As now turning to the very next few moments, by the end of this arc, we end up seeing the Eye of the Midnight Sun, the leaders specifically, then get captured by the Magic Knight captains, as every last one of them were taken into questioning. And not only that, but after using Mark's magic, they would then soon find out exactly where their base of operation were, as well as the other factions that were hidden throughout the entirety of the Clover Kingdom. As this is where we will then see every last one of the Magic Knights then hunt down the entirety of the Midnight Sun entire organization, as they would end up getting raided and capturing all the mages all around, as Nero would be there watching all this, wondering how exactly one 16-year-old boy was able to accomplish all of this, and who exactly was he? As now with this arc coming to an end, this is where we can now move on to the next one, this being the Heart Kingdom Joint Struggle arc, as we now end up doing another time skip. So now flashing forward to now multiple months that have passed after the events that went down between Asta and the Eye of the Midnight Sun, we would now see Asta once again, as currently right now he'll be returning back to the Black Bull's base after just completing a mission. But you see, along with him, as Asta would be there returning back, we would actually hear someone just kind of nabbing on Asta, basically just telling him how boring the mission was and how they could have done better and how easy it was. As currently right now we will see that right beside Asta would be none other than Liebe. As you see, throughout the months that had went by, as we now do a little bit of a flashback, we would now see Asta, as it will be just after the events that happened with the Eye of the Midnight Sun. As Asta by this point had finally given a briefing to Julius and was just once again doing his regular training routine. But every single time Asta would train, he just began to feel like he was hitting a brick wall. As after the fight that happened, Asta had tried using the same ability once again, this being Chaos Control. But no matter how many times Asta had tried to activate it, it failed. It was like Asta was missing some type of condition. As Asta would try to think it through multiple times, this is when suddenly he would then hear a voice call out to him. You know, no matter how many times you try to do it, you're not going to be able to do it successfully. You haven't met the right conditions just yet. Now Asta, hearing this voice, began to look around, as he even begins to use his magic to try to sense who this individual was. But once again, no matter how far Asta would send his magic, nothing would appear. As eventually, after hearing this voice continue talking to him, Asta would then shout out, telling him to come out already. And eventually, after Asta had finally called out at the individual, this is when suddenly Asta wouldn't see his surrounding areas then turn to darkness, as Asta was then dragged right into his mindscape. As Asta would be there, he would then see this ginormous entity right in front of him, this being Liebe in his ginormous form. As Liebe would be there looking at Asta, smiling, as Asta would see the demonic figure right in front of him. But yet, even after seeing this intimidating being, Asta wasn't afraid, as instead he just prepared to gather magic and fight the enemy, until eventually this is when Liebe would then shrink back to his regular size, as Asta would then get to see him face to face. I've been wondering when exactly you're going to come to see me. So how have you been, brother? Liebe would then ask Asta, with Asta being so confused about everything, as in the very next few moments, this is where Liebe will begin to explain. As you see now doing another flashback, during the events that happened with Licht and Liebe that happened in the main timeline, we will see a very big change. This being the fact that when Licht was with Liebe, she did end up telling Liebe about Asta, about the child she wished to keep but unfortunately couldn't, letting him know that she hoped that one day they would meet, and that by the time they would meet, they would become brothers and they would look out for each other. As Licht would tell Liebe about all the different ideas she had and how if Asta were there, they would be the best of friends. As Liebe listening to all this, which mind you, Liebe was very young, as he ends up listening to all this, he would just feel memorized, as he just can't help but wonder exactly how things would be once he actually got to meet his brother. But while Liebe was thinking about all this is when, unfortunately, Lucifero would then strike, as the same events that play out would play out the exact same way, with Licht having no choice but to stop Lucifero by stealing Liebe away, but at the cost of her life, as Liebe would have no choice but to say goodbye to Licht, as for the next few years that go by, he would be by himself, before eventually he would then finally find him, a boy with magic that was so extraordinary, and the one that Licht had told him that when they met, they would become brothers and look out for each other. As on the very day of the Grimoire ceremony, Liebe had sensed his magic, and he had felt how ginormous it truly was. As right there, as he would actually float down to him, this is where Liebe would then get to meet his brother for the first time, this being none other than Asta. As we now cut back to the first flashback. As after that encounter, as Liebe had described to Asta about everything that happened, this is when Asta would just be completely shocked once again, as his stoicness just broke after hearing this. As this is when Liebe would then tell Asta that he had promised to Licht that he would look out for him, and even though Asta may not consider them brothers yet, Liebe does, letting Asta know that he would help him out no matter what the situation was. But Asta, after hearing this, then tells Liebe that was quite a selfish move to make, as after hearing all this, Asta decided to do exactly as Licht has intended, as he tells Liebe that from that very moment, the second that he got the grimoire, and the second that Liebe was actually helping out Asta when it came to controlling his magic, is when Asta had already decided that Liebe was going to be his brother. As Liebe, after hearing this, would actually be shocked, as in that very split instant, even though Asta was much tougher, and even though he didn't really show emotions like that, even though Asta was very much like the, tough older brother type figure, Liebe could see it. He could see the similarities between Asta and Licht. As getting reminded of her, Liebe would actually begin to shed tears, as Asta would be there just, patting him on the head, letting him know that it was alright, as this is when Liebe would then suddenly begin to ask Asta for a favor. As even though he most definitely didn't want to bring Asta into it, there was really no one else he could turn to. As Liebe would then beg Asta to help him avenge their mother, as after all, Liebe just simply cannot move on until Lucifero was brought down. And Asta, after hearing this, would then agree to it. As from that very day, this is where we would then see Asta along with Liebe, as both of them would end up growing stronger together, with Liebe helping Asta control his magic and use it in different type of ways, with Asta also helping out Liebe and just kind of getting out of the mental shell basically. As Liebe thinks of being so alone for so long, he's not exactly used to common standards and stuff like that. But now with both of them being connected to each other, this actually allowed them to grow way stronger than he ever was before. As by now, as we now cut back to the present, Asta had been able to fully surpass that of the powers of the Magic Knight Captain. And not only that, but there's even been some speculation that Asta's power had been able to even rival that of the Wizard King himself. But you see, that was not the only thing that was going on. As throughout those months that went by, we will see a couple events that happened that, while yes, they didn't exactly happen the same way as it does in the main timeline, they would still happen nonetheless. Such as the introduction to both Nero and Henry, as Nero would end up revealing herself and telling all the Black Bulls about the situation that went down between her, the first Wizard King, and the elves. And not only that, but also Henry would then get introduced as the other member of the Black Bulls, with every last one of the Black Bulls accepting him even after his, strange illness. And not only that, but we also end up seeing all the Black Bulls, as well as the rest of the Magic Knights, growing way stronger, as thanks to the many months that went by, and thanks to Asta's accelerated growth, every last one of them had decided to push themselves even harder, considering the fact that there was no way they were going to be outdone by a rookie. But unfortunately, even though every last one of them would train extremely hard, they just simply couldn't compete with Asta's growth. And not only that, but we also end up seeing the rankings of the Magic Knight squad, to which, no surprise there, the Black Bulls end up gaining first place, with the Golden Dawn being second. As thanks to the speed that Asta is taking on these different types of missions, and thanks to Asta using them as training, Asta had been able to actually push the Black Bulls to go into higher lanes, as every last one of the Black Bulls also pushed themselves as well, as a way not to be outdone by Asta. As overall, things were going extremely well for the Clover Kingdom. But you see, while the Clover Kingdom was growing in strength and just continuously evolving, this is when suddenly Julius would then be given a message. As you see, currently right now visiting the Clover Kingdom will be none other than Gaijin. As by now, the Heart Kingdom had finally met its match. As unfortunately, no matter how many times they tried, they just simply cannot overcome this problem. So they needed help from another kingdom. As this is when Gaijin would then deliver a letter to Julius, as this letter would be kind of an alliance. As currently right now, the Heart Kingdom needed help to defeat the next greatest threat, this being none other than the Spade Kingdom. As unfortunately, although they had tried, and although they most definitely had tried everything they could, they just simply were not able to match up well against the Spade Kingdom, especially after finding out about the demon contracts that they made. So due to having no other choice, the Heart Kingdom would like to make a temporary alliance with the Clover Kingdom in order for them to take care of the Spade Kingdom. And when Julius hears this letter, he'll be very surprised, considering the fact that this wasn't in any of his visions. As so far by now, you guys already know that Julius is able to see into the future and is able to predict many things. But you see, the thing is, his predictions have been completely off by this point. Nothing was going exactly as he intended. His death, the Clover Kingdom falling into chaos, and also potential death, all that doesn't look like it's going to happen. Everything was thrown out the window. When he had actually received the alert saying that the Ivdom and its son leaders had been captured, he was completely thrown off by it, as his visions of the future were proven wrong. As this is where Julius then realizes that Asta is the anomaly in this situation, as by now he can't predict exactly what's going to happen. But unfortunately, there's nothing he can do but continue pushing on with the situation, as after getting this letter, this is where Julius would then agree to the temporary alliance. As after that, this is where every last one of the Magic Knight squad would then gain a 6-month training. Well, except for Asta. As by this point now, Asta has already trained himself enough to the point where he's actually able to contend with the Spade Kingdom. So while the rest of them are still playing catch up, Asta would actually help out when it came to taking on the Spade Kingdom, as Julius would actually give Asta a specific mission. This being the fact that he wants Asta, while the rest of them are training, to take care of their other sites and everything like that. Basically, he wants Asta to weaken them even further, although while the rest of them are training up in order to catch up to Asta. And Asta, after hearing and getting this mission, he would agree to it. As now with that, this is where we're now able to do once again another time skip. So now turning to the next couple of months that go by, we now turn to see the Spade Kingdom, and I'm not gonna lie to you, the Spade Kingdom isn't looking too well. During the months that went by, the Spade Kingdom had lost multiple amounts of their resources, the different bases that they set up all around, and overall, they were standing on their last few legs. As every last one of the other mages that were there, that were trying their best to control everything, were being taken out from Magic Knights of the Clover Kingdom, the Dark Triad would be there as they tried their best to understand exactly what went wrong. They thought they had everything planned out. Since they knew, after all, that they were the strongest because of their demon contracts, they thought for sure that the Magic Knights would spend most of their time just training, allowing them for even more opportunity to take control of more different lands. But unfortunately, it didn't seem as if things were going to go their way. As now turning to the Dark Triad, we now see Dante, Vonica, and Xenon, as every last one of them would be there, as they'll be silently frowning as they try to understand exactly what went wrong with their entire base of operation. But as all three of them were trying to figure out exactly what went wrong, this is when suddenly someone would then burst into the room, thus being one of the foot soldiers for the Dark Triad, as he tries to explain exactly what just went down, only for Xenon to then suddenly kill him without any hesitation, as currently right now they didn't need to hear even more bad news. As every last one of them would stare down at each other, this is when Dante would then finally come up with a plan. This being the fact that he already came to the estimation about what exactly is causing the most damage for their entire operation, as he put it down to only 3 places. The first one being the Heart Kingdom, as that's where Lola Pachica was, and thanks to her magical ability, she has been causing the Dark Triad quite a bit of trouble for quite a long time. As Dante would tell Vonica to take care of her, as by this point now, Dante has think that she had lived long enough, and it's finally time for them to finish her. While at the same time, the second one will be the Golden Dawn base, as the Golden Dawn has put in quite a large amount of work, as most definitely they have been causing quite a large amount of disruption for Dante and the Dark Triad, as they had been taken care of, and not only that, but actually gaining control over multiple different bases. And finally, the third one, which was most definitely not the least threat, in fact, in Dante's eyes, was the biggest threat of them all, was the Black Bulls. As the Black Bulls have definitely made themselves probably one of, if not the most dangerous threat to the Dark Triad, especially this being from one certain individual, this being none other than Asta. Now, Asta by this point has become quite a boogeyman for the Spade Kingdom, well, to the people that were trying to take over the Spade Kingdom. For the civilians there, Asta was seen as a hero, as whenever he appears, he would be able to take care of all the threats without any single bit of damage to himself. And not only that, but he would be able to rescue all the civilians without them even being able to notice it. So overall, Asta was seen as this kind of angel basically, as once he appeared, all the bad guys just simply disappeared. But for the Dark Triad, he was their worst enemy. And Dante thought it was fitting that he himself, as the leader of the Dark Triad, would take care of Asta. As after explaining the details about their plans, this is where every last one of the Dark Triad would then go their separate ways, each one of them ready to overcome their own battles. As this is where we will now once again do a miniature time skip. So now flashing forward to after the discussion between the Dark Triad, we will now turn to see every last one of them confronting their respective opponents. As the first one to battle anyone will be Vonica. She faces off against Noelle, who have been stationed there to protect Lola Pachica. I'm sorry, you guys know our second names. While at the same time, Xenon would be there at the Golden Dawn base, causing chaos, as even though the Golden Dawn had grown stronger, unfortunately with the demon contract, Xenon is just easily able to overpower all of them. But one person was luckily there to get in his way, this being Yuno. As even though Yuno had just heard that he was basically the prince of the Spade Kingdom, he still continued being a member of the Golden Dawn and is here to fight for his squad. As Xenon would face off against Yuno just like he does in the main timeline, as now all that left was Dante. Now Dante, when he arrives at the Black Bulls base, he would arrive to see that the base was fairly empty, as he would be kind of confused considering the fact that he heard that this was their hideout, so he expected large amounts of Black Bull members to be there. As he ends up looking through the windows of the base to see that no one was there, this is when suddenly he would then hear someone calling out to him. "I was expecting you to arrive. I just didn't think you would arrive this soon," a voice would call out to him. Dante would look around, only to then look up to see none other than Asta. As currently right now, Asta would be shown sitting on the roof of the Black Bulls base, and not only that, but on his shoulder will be none other than Liebe. As Liebe was completely serious, no smile on his face, as he was staring narrowed eyes directly at Dante. As Dante, seeing Asta, would then begin to smirk, as even though he had heard the rumors of Asta, he never truly got a confrontation with him. But after looking at Asta and sensing his magic, Dante was very confident that he could beat him, as Asta's magic didn't seem anything that Dante had heard of. As he had heard description of how powerful Asta was and everything like that, but now being face to face with him, Dante thought of it as nothing more but a joke. As this is when Dante then tells Asta that he has been causing quite a large amount of trouble, allowing Asta know that he's going to deeply regret it. But Asta, after hearing this threat, says nothing more, as he just continues looking at Dante with a look of just someone that holds a ginormous amount of contempt, as he showed little care to what Dante had to say, or really anything that Dante planned. As to Asta, all of this was very simple. He was just simply going to eliminate him and get rid of him. Asta knows that Dante had caused his brother quite a large amount of harm. So in his mind, Dante was already someone that was dead in Asta's eyes. As Liebe, who had always been very loud and very obnoxious in certain moments, this would be the quietest that Asta had ever seen him. As this is when Liebe would then tell Asta that it was about time that they finally get started, to which Asta would agree. As suddenly Asta would then get up, telling Dante that this was his grave and that he actually planned for Dante to arrive here, as all of this was according to Asta's plan. As you see, as we now do a little bit of a flashback, during the time after Asta had been able to take care of a majority of the bases, and as the Magic Knights were now becoming mobile, this is when Asta would actually talk to the Black Bulls, letting them know about a plan basically. You see, the thing is, Asta was taking care of a large amount of these bases, not just because of Julius's orders, but also for his own benefit. As you see, Asta was trying to bring the leader to him. And even though the chances of the plan working out completely were not 100%, Asta was confident that with the man's arrogance, Asta would be able to use it to his advantage. As basically, Asta didn't want to go to Dante, he wanted Dante to come to him. So that way he can take care of him exactly where he wanted him to be. As basically Asta wanted to turn the Black Bulls base into Dante's grave. And when the Black Bulls heard this, they were actually very surprised, as they asked Asta if he was truly confident that he could win against Dante. With Asta, after hearing this, just calmly telling them that yes, he'd win. As after hearing Asta's very clear words, as he was saying this like it was a fact, the Black Bulls would agree to it. As they decide to give Asta some space, as now he can go all out without, having to worry about them getting in the way or them getting hurt by his attack, as now this was truly going to be a fight where Asta can go all out. As we now turn back to the present, we will see Dante, as this is when suddenly he'll begin to use his gravity magic, increasing gravity on Asta, as the entirety of the Black Bull's base would then shake. But yet, even though Asta was feeling multiple amounts of gravity on him, he's shown to be very unaffected by it all. As instead he just calmly stands there, acting as if he was just feeling nothing. As this is when Asta would then ask Dante if that was all he had, as in the very next split second, this is when Dante would then be blasted away by a ball of chaos energy, as Asta had shot it out directly from the palm of his hands, as Dante would be surprised as his entire arm had just been blown away by Asta's attack. As immediately seeing how much damage he had taken, he used his recovery magic, as this is when he then looks at Asta in complete shock. His magical power, it's not even a quarter compared to mine, yet he was still able to do this much damage to me? No, something is wrong here. Dante is able to sum up, as it didn't make any sense. As from the very first appearance he got from Asta, he could already tell that Asta's magic didn't compare to his, or at least that's what he thought. But yet Asta, just from a simple attack, was able to completely blow away his arm? That wasn't right. But still, Dante had no other choice, as this is when he then enters his 20% form, as this causes Dante's arm to then regenerate, as he then tells Asta that he has to give him credit for the attack, but letting Asta know that just because he got a small bit of blood off of him doesn't mean anything. As in the very next split instant, this is where we would then see black orbs then appear all around Dante, as he ends up creating them out of gravity, as he ends up shooting them directly at Asta, basically making a miniature black hole. And yet, even with these attacks approaching, Asta showed no fear and hesitation, as this is when Liebe would then also disappear from Asta's shoulder, as magical energy just begins to erupt from Asta. As this energy was so powerful that was easily able to then destroy these black holes like they were nothing, as Dante would be surprised, as in the very next split instant, Asta would then disappear. Dante, seeing Asta's disappearance, would then suddenly stop his attack, as he then looks around trying to find him, only to then be blindsided by Asta. "Chaos Spear," Asta would say, as this is when suddenly Dante would then get slammed hard, as he would then be crashing into the ground, as Asta had been able to tackle him from behind, slamming him hard into the ground, as Asta had used his chaos magic in order to give a little bit of extra damage into his attack, along with his speed as well. As Dante, after hitting the ground hard, would be stunned completely, as he would try to force himself to get up, but while he was doing so, Asta was not letting up. As after making sure that Dante was on the ground, this is when Asta would then generate multiple amount of chaos blast, as he would then just begin to barrage Dante, with Dante not being able to do anything. As each one of these blasts were so strong that it shook up the entirety of the area they were fighting in. As Dante, using his recovery magic, would try his best to stay conscious, but unfortunately it just didn't seem to work out, as he continued getting bombarded by blows and blows, with him not being able to do anything. but eventually he would then soon have enough of it as he decides to go full on 100% form, as we would then see extra limbs begin to appear as well as his gravity magic growing stronger, as he ends up creating a ginormous black hole between both him and Asta, as Asta seeing the attack would actually be caught off guard as he would then dash away, as this attack was so strong that it nearly wiped out the entire area, all the while Dante would be the only one to survive, as he would actually be once again revealed as we see a large portion of the battlefield now taken care of, as he begins to laugh thinking that he was able to get Asta, only to be surprised as Asta would be shown casually a few distances away as he had been able to avoid the attack. To think that you would actually be able to damage me this much, you a weakling. Oh well, it doesn't matter anymore. I can still annihilate you here and now. You're nothing compared to me, Dante tries to say, as he ends up creating one ginormous black hole. Using his gravity magic to the utmost potential that he could right now, he will create a ginormous black hole that was so large that it was going to swallow up the entire area, including the black bull's base itself. And yet, even after seeing this ginormous attack, Asta didn't flinch, he didn't show fear, in fact he didn't care whatsoever. As instead, he would actually hear Liebe in the back of his mind as Liebe would be telling Asta to finish him already as he was just tired of this guy. And Asta, after hearing this, would then nod his head, once again just listening sadly, as this was a revenge for his mother, but also as a way to help out Liebe to finally move on from the event. As this is when Asta would then utter the words, "Chaos control," Asta would say, as just like that, this is where we would then see time itself then freeze, as currently right now no one was able to move except for Asta, as he was now completely in his own domain. As by now, this is where we would then begin to see Asta then generate a large amount of chaos energy, with Liebe helping him as well, as Liebe gathers all the chaos energy into a certain point, letting Asta know that they're ready to unleash it at any moment. As now, after gathering this much of chaos energy, this is where Asta would then suddenly disappear before appearing right in front of Dante, letting him know that this was the end. As Dante can do nothing more but look on, as time was frozen for him, he couldn't really do anything. This is when Asta would then utter the words, "Chaos burst!" As after saying the words itself, this is where we would then see Asta then release the chaotic energy, with this energy being so strong that it actually ends up annihilating the surrounding area. As the Black Bull's base was luckily a safe distance away, so I mean it didn't get caught up in the blast luckily, but still everything else that was there would just be annihilated. As Dante, the ginormous black hole, the surrounding forest and everything would just be obliterated by Asta's attack, as this attack would be so powerful that by the time the time would once again resume, the shockwave of it would spread out far and wide, reaching even the Heart Kingdom, the Diamond Kingdom, all the kingdoms that were there, as everyone themselves can feel the large amount of magic energy, as they wonder who exactly was it. Well, those that didn't know Asta at least, but every other member that actually heard and actually felt the attack, they knew that Asta had done it. He had won. As now, turning to Asta once again, we will now see him just sitting in this ginormous crater. As currently right now, we would then see what was left of Dante, as we see that his very grimoire was now turning into nothing more but dust. As Dante was no more, he just simply did not exist. As now with Dante being defeated, this is when Asta would then hear a ringing on his device, as he ends up picking it up to hear from not only just Noel, but also Yuno. As even though it took most definitely much more time than it did for Asta, Noel and Yuno have been able to defeat their respective opponents, as Vonica as well as Zenon had been successfully defeated. Each member of the Dark Triad had went all out in their respective battles, but yet even after going all out, they still stood no chance. As now with the battle coming to an end, this is where we're now able to do a final time skip. So now flashing forward through many years by this point now, we will now turn to see the majority of the Clover Kingdom once again. As by this point now, the Clover Kingdom has evolved, as after the battle with the Spade Kingdom, they had successfully fully completed the alliance with the Heart Kingdom, as now no more animosity or really anything like that between the two kingdoms. They were now aligned. And those were not the only ones that were aligned, as also the Diamond Kingdom as well as the Spade Kingdom had also joined in on the alliance, as the Spade Kingdom had gained a new ruler, this being none other than Yuno. As unfortunately, although Yuno had tried his best, and even though he most definitely had the skills to do it, unfortunately in this timeline, Yuno did not become the Wizard King. And not only that, but thanks to the Spade Kingdom having no ruler, Yuno had no choice but to go back over there and actually help out. And it's not like he really minded at all, considering the fact that many people of the Spade Kingdom actually saw Yuno as a hero. but there was still one person that many of them still respected, to the point where they even respected him above Yuno. As turning to the Clover Kingdom, as currently right now sitting in his rightful throne and being the one to do a generous amount of paperwork, will be none other than Asta. As after so many years and after so many battles, after being the one to lead the Clover Kingdom to victory over the Spade Kingdom, and after being the main reason behind their victory, Asta had been able to successfully take the position of Wizard King. As thanks to him taking this position, not only have they grown into a time of peace, considering the fact that Asta was seen as a boogeyman for many mages, considering the fact of his many feats of strength, but not only that, but thanks to Asta being the Wizard King, we also saw that a large amount of the commoner lifestyle has changed up quite drastically, as basically people were now seeing themselves as equal. Commoners were not really seen as commoners anymore, as basically the hierarchy system was no longer the exact same way, as basically anyone can become rich. Everyone had an equal footing in life. As now that Asta had been able to successfully push himself to the absolute limit, after finally being able to defeat the elves and also the Dark Triad, and after finally giving commoners and everyone else an equal footing in life and taking down the hierarchy system, this will be the final moments of the What If, as we see Asta once again reigning the title of being the Wizard King, as he'll be highly respected and feared by many, as this will be the end to the What If series, to what if Asta has Shadow Sid's abilities. Thank y'all so much for tuning into this What If. I really hope you guys do enjoy. I'm so sorry, y'all, that this What If took so long for me to complete, and I'm so sorry if this ending didn't seem to be like, you know, that much or anything like that, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I lost the motivation to actually make this What If midway through, but this was one of those What Ifs that, you know, I just felt like I needed to complete. And once again, I'm very sorry, y'all, like that it took so long. I'm thankful that you guys arrived here to see the What Ifs. If you guys have any more recommendations, please type them down below in the comment section, as I'm really looking for more What If ideas and everything, as I'm going back to make What If movies, and overall, like, I'm just going back to doing what I usually do. This is exactly why I don't do part series, y'all, as like I said, I don't have the schedule that can actually manage to do part series. So I apologize if you guys want a part series, but this is the last time I'm doing it. But still, nonetheless, thank y'all so much for tuning into this What If. I do really appreciate y'all, and I'm thankful for y'all being here and being a part of this What If series and everything. I really hope you guys enjoy yourselves, and I really hope you guys have a blessed day. As now, with all that being said, it's your host Seishi Samurai here, and he's signing off. Peace and have a lovely day.
Colors, switch the color, 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 switch it, switch the color, colors, switch the color, 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 switch it, switch the color.